Welcome to another episode of the Legal Gym Podcast, where we provide practical tips and strategies to help you start, build, grow, and, of course, legally protect your own online business. And now, here's your host, trademark lawyer Jim Hart.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Legal Gym Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we're going to be talking about how to conduct a proper trademark search or how to look up a trademark with the USPTO. And for the show notes for today's episode, which will include all the links and resources for everything that I'm going to be discussing today, make sure you head on over to hawthornelaw.net/search. That's hawthornelaw.net/search. All right, now let's dive in. All right, first of all, if you don't understand why this is important, I want you to go back and listen to episode 52 of the podcast, which is the episode where we talk about how to come up with an awesome, perfect trademark name. And I think you can hit there by going to hawthornelaw.net/perfect. And it's going to be really important that you listen to that because that's going to give you a lot of context that you're going to need in listening to today's episode. Now, for those of you that have already listened to that episode, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to cover today. Now, we're going to cover a couple things. We're going to talk about why it is important to conduct a trademark search. We're going to talk about what can happen if you don't do a proper trademark search. We'll talk about what it means for a name to be likely to be confused with yours. And then at the end of today's episode, we're going to talk about how to actually go about doing the search online. So that's a lot of information. We're going to move through this as quickly as we can, and I'll try to entertain you and keep you laughing and going throughout the entire episode. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, let's talk about why it is important to conduct a trademark search. So I have talked about this in previous episodes, and it is really important to conduct a comprehensive search for a potential brand name as a very important, crucial, I would say, early step of the trademark process. It helps you to determine the availability and distinctiveness of your given trademark, as well as mitigating the risks of potential conflicts. And it is only by thoroughly researching all the existing trademarks that are out there right now that you can avoid the potential legal issues down the road. And so it's really important before you start using a name or filing an application for a trademark that you do this trademark search. Now, what can happen if you don't do a search? A lot of people think, oh, well, I'm just going to go to the trademark office website. I'm going to fill out the application, which is, as I've discussed before, deceptively easy to fill out, and then I'm going to get my trademark. That's not how it works. So if you don't do a search, you could be building a business on what I would call borrowed property as an accidental infringer. What does that mean? It means that you are actually using the name of somebody that's already registered a trademark for that name. And that happens more often than you can imagine. And if you do that, that's going to cause problems for you later on. It's not going to immediately be apparent that there's an issue, but eventually it's going to catch up to you. You will be wasting a lot of time and money waiting on a trademark application to get approved. But in reality, what's going to happen is right now it's taking about 9 to 10 months for the examining attorneys at the trademark office to get assigned to your file and then take action on your file. And what's likely going to happen is now they can do one of three things. They can either approve your application for publication, they can ask you for additional information about your application or to disclaim certain components of your mark, they can ask you to change your description, or they can just flat out deny your trademark application and give you a legal reason for why they are doing that. And what's going to happen is if you are accidentally infringing on somebody else who has a name that's likely to be confused with your name and they're selling the same or similar products and services as you, then that examining attorney, when they do their search, they're going to discover this and then they are going to send you an office action and they are going to deny your trademark application. So basically you're going to be spending the next better part of a year wasting time waiting for them to approve your application when in reality all they're going to be doing is denying your application anyway. So you've wasted all that time building a brand that you can never actually use. Alternatively, another thing that could happen is you could actually tip off a prior brand. So if there's somebody else out there that's using the same or a similar mark, chances are they may have hired a lawyer or a service to monitor new filings with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office when somebody files an application for a name that is deceptively similar to theirs. And at that point, they could hire counsel to go ahead and issue a cease and desist letter. So you may not have been on their radar initially, but as soon as you file that application and they see that, then they can go ahead and send you a cease and desist letter and basically shut down your business. So those are the things that can happen if you don't do a search. Now, is it possible that you don't do a search and your name registers? Yes, that is possible. But you don't want to take that risk when there's so much time and money that you're going to be investing into your brand at stake. You want to make sure that you've got a name that you can actually use. The main issue that a lot of people do not necessarily understand is that the standard that the trademark office is going to be using when they're evaluating your trademark is likelihood of confusion. And so what does it mean for a name for it to be likely to be confused with your name? Now, I will tell you, the names do not need to be the same. They could sound the same. They could look the same. Think about like Blue Apron versus Green Apron. That's an actual case where Green Apron was actually denied because it was sounded too similar to Blue Apron. And you also must be selling the same or similar goods or services. So whenever I'm talking to a client and we're going through, and I do this actually during our paid strategy calls, is I will do a quick knockout search and I will tell the client, we'll look at their name and we'll look at other applications that could be confusingly similar to their name in terms of how the name looks or sounds or is spelled. That's one criteria. Then the other criteria is, are you selling the same or similar goods or services? Because you can have the exact same name, but be selling completely different services or products, and your trademark would be fine. Or you could be selling similar services or goods, but have a completely different name, and again, your trademark could be fine. It's where you have a name that looks or sounds or is exactly the same as another name, and that you're selling the same or similar goods or services where you really run into problems. So when we're doing a search, that's what we're looking for. And if you really want to think about this, if you had a registered trademark and you're looking through the USPTO database, I want you to think about, if you find something else that you think maybe could be deceptively similar to yours, look at that name and think, okay, if I had that name and I was selling the services that they list on their application, would I be pissed off if somebody was coming in and trying to apply for the name that I am trying to apply for? And if the answer to that question is yes, then chances are your names are likely to be confused with one another. And that's why it pisses you off. So let's talk about how to actually do the search. And I have a 12-step process here that we're going to go through. So the first step is to decide on the name that you want to search for. And if you have questions about whether or not your name is capable of trademark registration, again, go back and listen to episode 52 of the podcast where we talk about how to develop an awesome trademark name, because that's going to be really, really important. You need to have a name that is actually capable of trademark protection before you can go ahead and file that with the trademark office. Now, that's step one. Step two is I want you to take that name and I want you to make a list of alternative sounding names or spellings of your name. So if you've got Blue in your name and obviously Blue is spelled B-L-U-E, you may also want to write out a list of words like BLU or BLEW or BL something else that sounds similar to blue or is spelled differently but has the same name as blue. So you want to make a list of alternative sounding names or spellings of your name. Once you've done that, then I want you to go to USPTO.gov and you want to find the TESS database. I'll include an image of what this looks like in the show notes for today's episode. Then step number 4, you're going to click on Basic Word Mark Search. Once you've done that, you're going to type in the name that you want to use. Now, you can use quotes. You don't have to use quotes. If you've got a name that's got 2 words in it, then if you use quotes, it's going to narrow down the results. If you don't use quotes, you're going to have a whole bunch more results that you're going to see. But it's important. You want to make sure you type in the name that you want to use. And then you're going to see hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands of records. And at this point, we're going to need to start narrowing this down because it's going to be unyieldy. And if you're getting overwhelmed at this point, then you can just skip to the end and call my office and schedule a consult call. And I'm happy to walk you through this process. What you want to do is you're going to want to narrow it down, and you can narrow it down by class. You can narrow it down by whether or not the trademarks are live or dead. You can narrow it down by pending applications versus live applications. And all this, there's instructions on how to do this on the USPTO website, but it can be confusing. And so if you're not quite sure what to do and you're getting overwhelmed, then call my office. We can help you deal with this. But you do want to see if the name is live or dead. Dead marks can be especially helpful. I'm going to do an episode about dead marks in the future, but I think most people think, oh, it's dead. That means it's not something I need to worry about. Those can be great information for you, because if you have a name that's similar to a mark that's dead, then you can look at that name and you can figure out why that mark is dead, and then decide whether or not it makes sense for you to move forward with your trademark, because there could be something in that application that indicates why it got denied, or why it was canceled, why something bad happened. So dead marks can be especially helpful. Make sure you're comparing the goods for each record that you find against what you're selling. And I should go back and say, you need to open up each record that sounds or looks similar to your chosen name. And the way I do this is I right click on every single record and open up a new file. Once I've got 20 or 30 opened up, I go through them one by one. I compare the goods that are being sold with that trademark against the goods that I am selling or my client is selling with their trademark. And then I just close the ones that are fine. But ones that are problems, I usually take a screenshot and keep that to put into the report that I'm giving to the client. Now, this is the way I used to do it. I will say I do use expensive trademark searching software now that makes it a lot easier to do this analysis. But if you're doing it for free and you're doing it on your own, this is what you're going to need to do. Now, if the name is similar and the goods or services are similar, then it's probably going to be a no-go, or you're going to want to look at it a little more carefully or talk to a lawyer like me about whether or not I think it's okay for you to move forward with that name. Now, you want to go back and redo this search for each and every name on your original list. Now, I think we lost track of what number I'm on here, but that was number 10. Go back and redo this search for each name on your original list. Once you've done that and you've exhausted all the names with the USPTO database, you want to go back and you want to search for all those same names on Google. I would recommend going at least 5 to 10 pages deep on Google. You want to search on Facebook. You want to search on YouTube. You want to search on Amazon. You want to search on Instagram. And I would even go to the Yellow Pages because now you can get there's a nationwide Yellow Pages database that you can use. And I want you to confirm that nobody else is using the name that you are seeking to apply for. Now, once you've done this and you've gone through this entire process and you think your name is good, then you can go ahead and file for trademark protection. A big mistake I see a lot of people make at this point is that they don't actually file the trademark application. They do the search, they think, okay, great, name is good for me. Then they start using that name, but then, a month from now or 2 months from now, they haven't filed a trademark application for that name, and somebody else can come in and file an application for the same or a similar name to you, or a name that's likely to be confused with what it is that you're doing. And then that can cause you problems. So you just need to understand your search that you've done is only as good as the amount of time that's passed between when you did the search and when you file an application. If you never file the application, it doesn't matter what you found on this search, because sooner or later somebody's going to steal that name from you, whether intentionally or not. Now, if this all seems a little overwhelming, it's because it is. And this is a lot of work. As a trademark lawyer, as I mentioned before, I use powerful and expensive software to help me run my searches quickly and efficiently for my clients, and we uncover names that you probably would not uncover if you were doing this on your own. And then what we do is, after we have a report that might come back with hundreds of hits, we filter those results down, and we look at each potential problem trademark one by one and provide a legal opinion letter with our final recommendations to our clients, letting them know whether or not we think they can move forward with their trademark application. If you want to learn more or schedule a strategy call to review the merits of your potential brand name, head over to hawthornelaw.net/consult to schedule time to get on our calendar. Now, before we finish up, I want to tell you about my new trademark book that I'm working on. Right now, I'm in the process of writing, and I've sent the manuscript to an editor at this point, and I'm waiting for them to finish editing the book. And this is a book that's going to give you all the information you need to pick the right name for your business, register that name as a trademark with the USPTO, and then use that registration to leverage your brand and increase the value of your business moving forward. So if you'd like to receive special early access to the book, as well as previews of the book chapters as they're finished, visit hawthornelaw.net/mark. That's hawthornelaw.net/mark. All right, all you Legal Gym listeners, now that you know more about how to do a proper trademark search, you are ready to implement, because if there's one thing we love to do over here at the Legal Gym, it's to take massive action. So if you haven't already, make sure to check out the show notes page for today's episode. You can get a rundown of all the links and resources and everything else that we talked about here today by visiting hawthornelaw.net/search. That's hawthornelaw.net/search. That's going to be the home base for all of your legal and business tools and resources to help you start, build, and of course, legally protect your very own online business. Thank you so much for listening today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode, or I should say, talking with you in the next episode. Thanks so much, folks. Have a good one.